Jessica Parker had always been the kind of person who noticed the little things. It was a habit she'd developed as a child, growing up in a household where silence often spoke louder than words. So, when she saw the stuffed bunny lying abandoned on the park bench, its once bright pink fur now faded and dirty, she couldn't just walk away. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands. The tag on its ear read, "Emily," in neat, looping handwriting. Jessica glanced around the park, but it was empty except for a few joggers and a mother pushing a stroller in the distance. She tucked the bunny under her arm and decided to take it to the lost and found at the community center. But as she walked, something nagged at her, a feeling she couldn't quite shake. It was the same feeling she'd had years ago, when she'd found her best friend crying in the school bathroom, bruises hidden under her sleeves. Jessica had learned to trust her instincts, and right now, they were telling her this wasn't just about a lost toy. Malene Carter had always prided herself on keeping up appearances. From the outside, her life looked perfect. A beautiful home in the suburbs, a successful husband, and a bright, cheerful daughter. But behind closed doors, the cracks were beginning to show. It had started with the late nights at the office. Mark would come home smelling of expensive cologne and cheap excuses. At first, Malene had believed him. She'd trusted him. But then the phone calls started, whispered conversations that ended abruptly when she walked into the room. And then there were the shares. Mark had always been the face of the company, but over the years, his business partner, Claire, had quietly been buying up stock until she had enough to take control. When Mark lost the company, he lost a part of himself. The man Malene had married, the man who used to sing Emily to sleep and bring her flowers for no reason, was gone. In his place was a stranger, angry and bitter, who blamed her for everything. Jessica stood on the doorstep of the Carter home, the stuffed bunny in her hands. The house was imposing, with its manicured lawn and grand entrance. But there was something off about it. A stillness that felt unnatural. She rang the doorbell and waited. When Malene opened the door, Jessica was struck by how tired she looked. Her eyes were shadowed, and her smile didn't quite reach them. "Can I help you?" Malene asked, her voice polite but distant. "I found this in the park," Jessica said, holding out the bunny. "I thought it might belong to your daughter." Malene's expression softened. "Emily's been looking everywhere for this." "Thank you." She hesitated, then added, "Would you like to come in?" "Emily would want to thank you herself." Jessica nodded, stepping inside. The house was immaculate, but there was an air of tension that made her uneasy. She followed Malene into the living room, where a little girl with curly brown hair was sitting on the floor, coloring. "Emily, look who found Bun Bun," Malene said, holding out the toy. Emily's face lit up. "Bun Bun!" she squealed, running over to hug the stuffed animal. She looked up at Jessica with wide, grateful eyes. "Thank you, miss." Jessica smiled. "You're welcome, sweetheart." As Jessica turned to leave, she noticed the faint sound of raised voices coming from upstairs. Malene's face tightened, and she quickly ushered Jessica toward the door. "Thank you again," she said, her voice strained. "I'm sorry, but we have to." Before she could finish, a man appeared at the top of the stairs. He was tall, with sharp features and a cold, calculating gaze. Jessica recognized him immediately. Mark Carter, the disgraced CEO whose downfall had been all over the news. "Who's this?" he demanded, his voice sharp. "She found Emily's bunny," Malene said quickly. "She was just leaving." Mark's eyes narrowed as he descended the stairs. "You shouldn't be letting strangers into the house," he said, his tone dripping with disdain. "You never know who they might be." Jessica felt a chill run down her spine. There was something about the way he looked at her, like she was an intruder in his domain. She forced a polite smile. "I'll be going now. Take care." As she walked back to her car, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong in the Carter household. Over the next few days, Jessica found herself thinking about Marlene and Emily more and more. She couldn't explain why, but she felt compelled to check on them. So, one evening, she drove back to the Carter home, telling herself she was just being neighborly. When she arrived, she heard shouting from inside the house. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone and started recording. Through the open window, she could hear Mark's voice, loud and angry. "You think you can take her away from me?" he roared. "She's mine, Marlene. You'll never get rid of me." Jessica's heart raced as she listened. She knew she had to do something. She called the police, then waited, her phone still recording, until they arrived. The police took Mark away in handcuffs, his face twisted with rage. Marlene and Emily stood on the porch, watching as he was driven away. Jessica approached them cautiously, unsure of what to say. "Thank you," Marlene said, her voice trembling. "You saved us." Jessica nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. She knew this was just the beginning, that there would be a long road ahead for Marlene and Emily. But for now, they were safe. In the weeks that followed, Jessica became a constant presence in Marlene and Emily's lives. She helped Marlene navigate the legal system, find a therapist for Emily, and start the process of rebuilding their lives. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and moments of doubt, but slowly, they began to heal. For Jessica, the experience was transformative. She had always been someone who cared deeply about others, but this was different. She had made a difference in someone's life, and it gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. As the months passed, Marlene and Emily began to find their footing. Marlene started a small business from home, and Emily began to smile again. Jessica continued to visit, bringing toys and books for Emily and offering a listening ear for Marlene. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Marlene turned to Jessica. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You've given us a second chance." Jessica smiled. "You don't have to thank me. Seeing you and Emily happy is all the thanks I need." And as they sat there, watching the sky turn from orange to pink to purple, Jessica felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in a long time. She had made a difference, and that was all that truly mattered.